Hi, everybody, and welcome. I'm Haley Mitchell Haugen. I am the editor of Sheila-Na-Gig Online and Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. And tonight we are celebrating the publication of Barbara Marie Minney's chapbook, A Woman in Progress. So Barbara's going to do us a great reading tonight. And then we have some friends here from Sheila-Na-Gig's spring 2024 issue who will be doing some invited mic readings as well. So welcome. Barbara Marie Minney is a transgender woman, award-winning poet, writer, speaker, teaching artist, and quiet activist. Her poetry and essays have appeared in numerous publications, including Politico, The Buckeye Flame, The Gasconade Review, Gargoyle Magazine, Pine Cone Review, Women Speak, that's the Women of Appalachia Project, Women Scream, the International Poetry Anthology of Female Voices, The New Wasteland, New Words, a trans and gender expansive journal, and I Thought I Heard a Cardinal Sing, Ohio's Appalachian Voices. So you can find her work all over the place. Barbara's poetry has been translated into Spanish, and she's the author of If There Is No Heaven, the winner of the 2020 Poetry is Life Award, and an Akron Beacon Journal Best Northeast Ohio book in 2020, the Poetic Memoir Chapbook Challenge, and Dance Naked with God. Barbara is a retired attorney and a seventh-generation Appalachian and lives in Talmadge, Ohio, with her wife of over 42 years. And a menagerie of stuffed animals. So welcome, Barbara. This book has been out for a little bit now, but I've been really excited for this reading and to give you this opportunity. So welcome.
All right. Thank you, Haley. And thank you so much for having enough faith in me and my work to undertake the publication of A Woman in Progress. Being part of the amazing Sheila-Na-Gig family has been a dream of mine for a very long time. And this collection is both very personal and important to me and my growth as a poet. I feel like I'm finally finding my true voice in this collection. I'm going to begin with a poem that was at least partially influenced by a poem I saw by Charles Bukowski as I was leafing through one of his books in a bookstore. I don't think I bought the book, but the poem stuck in my mind, and it's called No Experience Needed. Lurking naked in the shadows, she said, "You don't have enough life experiences to be a serious poet." The blue-green of her daybreak eyes polished by the dawn, moonlight hair dark as raven feathers. Never a lonesome cowboy riding the range, never a revolutionary working for change. Never a matador killing bulls in Spain. Never a battered junkie shooting cocaine. Never a weary janitor cleaning floors. Never a sneaky John cruising for whores. Never a pregnant hitchhiker on the road. Never a debonair spy speaking in code. Never an ambulance driver wounded in war. Never a ragged castaway washed ashore. Never a homeless train-hopping hobo. Never a vagrant wino on Skid Row. Never a seasick merchant seaman. Never a soldier in the French Foreign Legion. Never a hot rod racer on a track. Never a lonely hermit living in a shack. Never a washed-up boxer in the ring. Never a brutal mercenary in Beijing. Never a secret member of a sleeper cell. Never a derelict thrown in a redneck jail. I did change genders, I said quietly. Does that count for anything? This next poem is a found poem. And the primary sources are Whipping Girl by Julia Serrano, Screw the Roses, Give Me the Thorns by Philip Miller and Molly Devon, and the Holy Bible. And it's called Masochistic Murmurs. My culture had its way with me in ways that I will never understand. My self-esteem ripped right out of me. Now all that's left is a submissive streak. I turned to the rest of the world to figure out who I was. what I was worth, a masochist who derives pleasure by receiving pain in a beautiful but twisted way, like the unnamed narrator in Venus in Furs, surrendering control of herself into the hands of the dominant world, like a good little boy, obeying earthly masters with fear and trembling, presenting my body as a living sacrifice, picking up on all the not so subliminal messages, like TV shows where father knows best, fairy tales where helpless girls await a handsome prince, and the cartoons where Superman always saves Lois Lane. Hospitals wrap baby girls in pink flannel blankets, and boys get blue ones. Schoolyard taunts like sissy and fairy and pussy all teach that feminine is synonymous with weakness. Nobody needed to tell me that I should be bound and flagellated for wanting to be the lesser sex. To satisfy her need, a natural female submissive recognizes her earthborn inclinations. Sexuality becomes a strange combination of jealousy, self-loathing, and guilt. My brain concocting fantasies right out of BDSM handbooks. Mental library full of erotic cerebral cinema, provocative images and languages gathered from imagined experiences, woven into the labyrinth of my sexuality. Private parts responding to conditioning, coming face to face with my own misogyny, unlearning lessons that were etched into my psyche before I ever set foot in school. The attraction for the submissive is freedom to let go, removing the stumbling blocks to experience pleasure. No longer alone in a hostile universe, looking into my own eyes, finding endless strength and inconsolable sadness, overcoming humiliation and abuse, feeling shame for my desires, but having the courage to pursue them anyway. Appreciating how fucking empowering it can be to be female. A sign that I am finally beginning to learn to love myself. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and read a couple of romantic poems. When I transitioned, my wife and I decided that we would like to renew our vows and be remarried as two women, because our original wedding was less than ideal. We wanted to do something our way. And that took place on October 7th, 2018, which was my 65th birthday. And this poem is called October 7th, 2018, for Marilyn. I cling to the tear-filled Kleenex in my hand, holding it like a lifeline, just like I've clung to you through all these years, like an addict clings to his blood-stained needle, feeling the surge of relief through his veins. Just like Peter Cetera saying, "You're a hard habit to break." Not that I ever wanted to. It would have been worse than Lennon's Cold Turkey, and that was a pretty bad song. How am I ever going to get through these 7 pages of vows I've written? Yes, sometimes I get wordy. After all, I was trained to be a lawyer. We are like opposite ends of a battery. You positive, me negative. You always could peel me back like the layers of an onion until the blue-violet tears flow like dirty wine. These are not tears of sadness, but tears of joy, that you are still here after 37 years. Sometimes I feel like you didn't really love me. You just tolerated me until something better came along. That was my internal struggle, not yours. My self-pity, my distrust, my fortifications against my own demons. You always stayed above the fray, stable and strong as bedrock, while I took for granted things never said or understood. I lost count of the number of times you saved me, like a saint in shining armor, fighting the dragons of despair. And I fought dragons for you, too. They were just smaller. I'm proud to say that my wife and I have been married for over 42 years. And this next poem is called 41, and it was written on our 41st anniversary. And we were actually away at an Amish bed and breakfast. And the poem is called 41. And I don't mean George H.W. Bush. I mean us, two fragmented Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts, stimulated and inspired by diverse elements, cross-pollinated into one queer variety. I want to bleed poetry for you, shout hallelujah until my lungs explode, sweat psalms of thanksgiving and praise. Youth like an out-of-focus photograph, glazed over by time, raising our heads toward heaven in veneration, sentient shadows seeking the mind asylum, souls colliding on moonbeams, beauty out of chaos, creating our own divine presence, pieces of ourselves forever in the other's heart, motionless in the Amish bed and breakfast, kissing deeply and honestly, 11 on the McDonald's pickle scale, claiming our transformative love, a revolutionary act. You said you loved me very much. Space stilled, time stopped, lightning in a snowstorm, radiant light miracle. For the first time, after all these years, I finally believed it. The next series of poems I'm going to read is a series of depression poems. And these poems were written at a very low point in my life. I had a publishing contract with a publisher in Chicago for a full-length collection. And about a month and a half before my manuscript was due, I got a Dear Barbara letter, I guess you would call it, from the publisher, telling me that she had made a business decision to no longer publish poetry and she was canceling my contract. And I've struggled with mental health issues most of my life, so that threw me into a deep depression. And I wrote these series of poems to help me write myself out of the depression. And as it turned out, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because that manuscript has now become 2 chapbooks, and there's more for for another publication that I'm working on. So depression poems. Depression poem number 1. A basket overflowing with unanswered shoulds sinks down forlornly in the corner. Western Union boys delivering painful rejections lie in wait at the door. Flowers unblooming in the spilled spaghetti sauce. Icy promises squirm on broken plates. Depression poem number 2. A maroon whale struggles on jagged rocks, aimless and adrift out of its world, estranged from its evolutionary trajectory. Depression poem number 3. I swallowed lightning glass, a discharge of electricity cutting holes in my belly, a shock wave of expanding explosions in my negatively charged storm cloud brain. Out among the doomed and damned, losing control of the wrongness. Depression poem number 4. Crushed under the wheels of a truck, Madness, one steering wheel turn away. A cacophony sinkhole of confusion. Salsa taste of vengeance, bitter in the mouth. Out among the dragons, painful guttural groan forming in the throat. Stepping over the bullshit, finding queer comfort in self-isolation. Depression poem number 5. I just read Auguries of Innocence by Patti Smith. I did not understand any of it. Why is poetry considered to be great so hard to decipher? What's the point? My poetry will never reach those heights. In that game, I am a scrub, forever sitting at the end of the bench. The wind blows away from me, aroma of rejection sour on the tongue, hanging on by a loose thread from the noose around my neck. Depression poem number 6. The feverish frenzy of the storm drains the lifeblood from the sea like a radioactive mosquito. White horses stampede across beach toes, more turbulent with each feral breath. A church mouse high on cannabis chases a cat around the sanctuary, while broken-hearted Victorian maidens silently pray. Snarls smelling like broken dreams, escaping from lipstick-stained teeth. And depression poem number 7, Broken Stalks. It must be a psychoactive dream, field crowned by an oceanic abyss of gilded wheat, eager to be harvested. Dark-haired male-pouched tobacco barns diffusing dots between wind waves. Spittoons of moonless nights. Combines only reap the easy, stalks standing straight up, rolling over the bent, broken and beaten, twisted and crushed flat into the ground, ignored, marginalized, and soulless. Brain-dead zombies sweating blood, shuffling through a personal universe, trampled, trashed, and tokenized. Hysterically screaming in a wasteland purgatory, staring unblinkingly into the sun, looking for a message that isn't there, intimidated by emotion, wishing my soul could sing. Am I too broken to be saved? This next poem is called Talk to Me. The queen in the bathtub, shattering the glass cage. Clowns wearing pork pie hats, speaking in Oxford accents. Girls promenading in the street with yellow tulips. Beatniks listening to Burt, talking hipster lingo. Nodding off in a kaleidoscopic haze. Sharp smells of old wine and urine. Sinner and saint sharing the same empty grave in Garrettsville. Horizon so very far away. No more fucks left to give. Not drunk like Hart Crane, feeling an urge to jump ship, converse with the sea. I've got 2 more. This next poem I usually end my sets with, but I'm mixing things up tonight. I usually end my set with this poem because it's my wife's favorite poem, and she's got it framed in a couple places in the house. And it's reflective of my Appalachian heritage, and it's called Tomato Sandwich. It's simple, really. A red, ripe Marietta tomato, cut into slices, placed between 2 pieces of bread. Add a little mayo, and you have a tomato sandwich. But there's much more to it than that. Memories garnish those wedges of bread, formed and to be formed, consumed and to be consumed, just like the sandwiches, the nectar tickling my chin. brushing against the earthy herbal scent of Grandma's tomato plants, carefully staked in neat rows in the small field next to the old wooden outhouse. A two-seater with last year's Sears and Roebuck Christmas catalog toilet paper. Always wondering if the location made the tomatoes grow better. The lusty smell of the outhouse mingling with the warm, savory scent of the plants, creating the aroma of summer and tomatoes yet to come. I don't have kids to share these stories with, but I have a wife, cityfied, but the love of my life, maybe the only person I've ever really loved or who has ever really loved me back. Love dies easily for me, and it is always a hard birth, sometimes even a stillbirth. But there's always the one that was brought to me as if by wonder, picnicking by a quivering brook, the only one that I share my tomato sandwich with. I had to work up the courage to read this next poem. It's the title poem to the collection, and it's an eraser poem. And it's kind of reflective of my life as a transgender woman, erasing one identity that I lived for a lifetime, 60 years, and moving into a new identity. The primary source of the poem is Aaron Joy Henry's essay, Embracing Womanhood, Why I'm Still a Work in Progress. And the first part and the last part are my own words. A woman in progress. In the dungeon, I am cuffed to the St. Andrew's cross. He is standing behind, flogger-wielding master, accusatory eyes burning through the hood, cock straining against leather pants, storm raging with each stroke on my bare ass. In awe of women, expressing feelings and emotions I could pull over my face completely to make me want to vomit. Dormant for years, there was no crying in life. This feminine creature inside demanded to express herself, not allowed to enter temples and sacred places I was there to explore, walked around in shame until surrounded by a loving essence so strong I actually see it, somehow able to apply love to all the places that hurt. Honor my feminine as sacred, the key to survival. Let go of self-judgment, value vulnerability, showing up as your authentic self. In the dungeon, he is tied to the St. Andrew's cross. Bare ass exposed. Cock not so hard now. I'm standing behind. Flogger in my hand. I'm the dominatrix. I'm in charge. I am the storm. Thank you so much. And thank you, Haley, and thank you to all of you who were here tonight.
Thank you so much, Barbara. So wonderful to hear these poems of strength and change. Again, we be here. And just such an honor for me to publish this book. So
thank you, Haley.
We have all been listening to Barbara Marie Minney read from her chapbook, A Woman in Progress by Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. So thank you so much. And we will now turn to our invited mic section of the evening with readers from Sheila-Na-Gig Volume 8.3, I believe, Spring 2024. And we are beginning with our friend, Rick Christensen. So go ahead and take it away, Rick.
Okay, good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me. Wonderful night. Thank you, Barbara, for sharing your work with us. I'm going to read two tonight from my new book. One of them was previously in Sheila-Na-Gig, and I'll read that first. So one serious one and one fun one. Serious one first. Snow in April. Big, lazy, unexpected flakes are falling. The newly bloomed tulips tremble when their cups catch the crystals. She stares out through the glass, trying to discern this untimely tableau. She knows she has vascular dementia, but she still has a very full life. She talks to people all day long, but the hallucinations are intractable. She cannot trust that her chatting partner is not smoke. Still, one-sided dialogue is underrated. She surprises herself with her secrets. She needs this play of conversation to find her shifting boundaries before they impinge and impact others in ways that she does not intend. It is like that with this snow. She asks herself if she should mention it. She knows that they are planning to install the 5G soon. She hopes that it will improve her reception. She hates to have to ask for things to be repeated. If she tells about the snow, they might move her down on the list. It is starting to accumulate on the grass, and the blooms are bending from the weight. With shifting clarity and confusion, she remembers an NPR story about global warming. She still remembers about the calories, the amount of energy required to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water 1 degree Celsius. It makes her sad to remember enough to know that she cannot always remember. She decides to keep her own counsel. The snow will certainly melt, and the tulips will be unbowed when the weight of white cover has been lifted. Okay, this next one's a little bit more fun, and it is based on a true story. When I was very little, way back 1950s, until I was almost 4 years old, I lived with my great-grandparents in Southern California, out in the desert. They were German immigrants, and this is I swear, absolutely true story to the best of my recollection about them, and it is called Prescription. The doctor told my great-grandfather that my great-grandmother should have a glass of wine before dinner each evening. Good to replenish her iron, and she was a nervous sort, although no one really talked about that in more than vague terms. Papa wanted Mama to be just right. They were not drinkers, but the doctor said. Papa bought a big green bottle of Chianti, the kind nestled in woven grass. Mama always listened to Papa. Papa always listened to the doctor. She drank her wine, the whole glass, every day. A week passed. Papa didn't understand. Mama was following doctor's orders, but she had stopped cooking dinner. She just fell asleep in her chair with the pro wrestling in the background on the flickering TV. Papa wanted Mama to be just right. He called the doctor, told him Mama was sleeping away dinner, woke with a headache each morning. The doctor still made house calls. He came to the house and asked to see the wine and the glass. Papa dutifully fetched the Chianti and the 16-ounce tumbler glass. He filled it to the brim. See, doctor, we follow your prescription. The doctor hid his smile. The next day, the doctor returned with a gift. 2 wine glasses in a box. The doctor told Papa, only one of these each day and not filled to the brim. Mama made pork chops, potatoes, and green beans for dinner. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for having me here to celebrate Barbara's new book. Congratulations. Happy to be here. I'm going to read tonight from my Sheila-Na-Gig book, Shouting at an Empty House. I have a couple poems for you. First one comes from my sometimes chagrin at losing all of the gods and goddesses and mythical creatures that we've lost to the ages. It's called Mythological. The longest moment lingers beneath the apple trees in my back lawn, where honeybees get sozzled on blossoms and stagger as they fly from shadow to light, from shadow to light, from ecstasy to euphoria, and back again, where sunlight dapples and dances with an unexpected breeze, breaks over every branch, and shatters in glory upon the ground, where even gods and goddesses would come to play if anyone still allowed them the quiet comfort of being, allowed them an unrepentant passion that everyone could believe and join in and find in their own humdrum lives and toss away days. And the longer I wait here with my lover, like ancient sweethearts from thousands of years ago, the longer I can believe we might be a part of forever, coming and going and coming and going, a cluster of stars swirling down upon us as softly as apple blossom petals landing upon our unclothed bodies in our unkempt hair, waiting centuries for someone to tell our story with one long and lingering breath. And that one, just so you know, was written as one sentence. I'm glad I got through it. All righty. And the next one comes from another consternation of mine. In physics, I've heard people say that two objects never actually touch because the atoms, even between my fingertips, never combine. So there's really no touching. And I had a similar disdain for the idea of the breaking down of time and how small a unit of time can we get to until we lapse into forever, which is not our experience, of course. We enter 1 second, we come out the other. But my little brain, this one's called zeptosecond. A trillionth of a billionth of a second, or a decimal point followed by 70 zeros and a 1. It's from livescience.com. Contrary to reason, everything gets smaller. The house no longer holds my every breath. My father's soul shrinks in his body, the last few crumbs of mercy. It's been reported that time is shattered further, a glass bottle broken over and over to dust, then atoms, then particles of collision and theory. If I keep dividing the space between my father and me, I will never arrive. Maybe I can stretch time the same way if I experience each moment. But even a moment is too long. It must be torn down to its infinitesimal parts, so I can stay there forever, whatever that may be. How can the universe keep expanding, giving us more room to explore? And tons of dust fall through the atmosphere to add mass to the earth, which causes a heaviness I cannot get out from under. Out from under, a salamander wriggles from the shadow of one rock to the shadow of another, the shadow of my father. For no reason I can think, I waste even the smallest pieces of time. Thank you.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. My name's Paul Ilechko. I think I've met quite a few of you before virtually, either through Facebook or readings here in the past. Again, I have 2 poems tonight. The first one, Observance, is in the most current edition of Sheila-Na-Gig. So I'll start with that one. Observance. The poor man makes use of his invisibility, becomes a close watcher, begins to understand the patterns made by the higher classes as they stroll the city streets, and the way that rats and cats and other creatures will scurry under cover of darkness. He watches the beautiful women painted golden by the late summer sun, the brilliant white of seabirds as they flash across the blooming harbor, plummeting into rolling waves and skimming across the liquid dark immensity. He hears the intermingling of so many different sounds as a form of music. What is cacophony to everyone else is a symphony that burns its themes and counterpoint into his cortex. Nobody else knows the city the way that he does, awash in memory and structure and theory, but still not even a sidebar in the history of his times. Thanks. The second one is called A Social Life. It's a bit of a commentary on social media and how it's become so entwined with our existence these days. A social life. Television gradually faded into oblivion, just as radio had done for a previous generation. We tried to understand what home meant in a world that was so displaced. We knew people by name without knowing if those names were real. We knew people through photography without knowing how it had been modified to meet an ephemeral view of perfection. You polished the lens of your camera so that you could see more clearly, but the haze was thickening no matter where you went, and focus was impossible to come by. Everyone was wearing makeup now that gender had faded into irrelevance. Lives were longer than they had ever been, but the pace of living was so accelerated that it was hard to believe. Everyone used to have a plot of land to either live or die on, but no longer. The soil has been ruined by overfarming, and in the shade, the mushrooms blaze into being before collapsing back into the dirt that spawned them. I'm confident that you are what you claim to be, and I hope that you can say the same. My hair grows from strange places now, the edges of my ears and the space between my brows, but it's easy to remove it before posting a new profile picture. Thanks.
First, I just want to thank Haley for putting these on, and Barbara, and all the rest of the readers and poets that are online, and even if you're not a poet, those two. My first poem, which is in the spring edition, is called For Floyd. Floyd is my grandfather, a Swedish man, and was a farmer to begin his life, but not by his choice. For Floyd, I read your brief words in the margins, your pencil scratching a momentary truth amid the sentences of others. And I thought of you, 18, farming for your father, incapacitated with heart failure, longing to attend college when he healed, somewhere lost over a ridge toward the river in the high corn, your mother waiting for a turn of idling tractor to hail you with a towel for lunch. Those brief impressions like deepened furrows, exclamation points like the footprints of crows. He got to go to college when he was 33, by the way. He had to farm for 15 years for his father, but he finally made it. The next one also is a theme on apple blossoms. It's called Apple Blossom Square Dance. And in case you catch it, I like recently plowed fields. So across the field of fork-raked furrows, in the gleaming furrows of May moonlight, the dark pond of black soil reflected, I swam to the fragrance of apple blossoms, fleeing the women in white and green skirts, flowing to the fiddle, raising a fire by tamping down desire with peg and soul hard to the floor. Like white water birds, the blossoms awaited, eider-down petals, plumage more silken than soft perfumed forearms of women in flowering white and green skirts flowing to the fiddle, like eidolons of water birds to fluttering blossoms as they fell. I remember the toe of those feathered waters, my face enveloped in flowers and scents, searching for the firm shore of earth, which the blossoms, like the mirage of women in flowering white and green skirts, moon-sprung and drifting, fragrantly denied. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Since I'm new, I'm going to say my name. I'm Melissa Downs. I am speaking to you from rural Western Pennsylvania, where storms are going through, which is why I am on my phone, because my internet is out. So my apologies for being in your face. But first poem I'm going to read is Okie Dokie, which Haley and Barbara were kind enough to give the editor's award to. All right. This is for Philip Levine. I was lucky enough to get to work with him for a semester a really, really, really long time ago. So it's called Okie Dokie for Philip Levine. Factory belt rivers assemble themselves nightly, scraping and screeching against iron banks, trundling flotsam that drifts in the murk of an industrial sewer, an industrial memory of the grimed Midwestern blue collar ringing the Great Lakes, past an inky, oily sky, a darkened Detroit of the imagination, always dirty, the crisp white tuckers of shop girls, grayly grim, by the time night sends them home again. Never write an okie dokie poem, he says. Bad poetry on the way to something else? Fine. Lines fumble to become something beyond a boy's bony hands the first time round a breast, but not the okie dokie, those where someone says yes, of course yes, and promptly settles for a nap. In lives long as long naps, the poem creeps and clutches from under the bed, lurches, looms from mirrors, strives up, stroking heavy water to surface in a life of pale days and nights, not even twilight. In the busy, humdrum, stressful, jolly mess of every day, in the hospital corners of a life surgically removed, in this okie dokie life one bends one's will to, the poem swaggers, staggers, jousts and jingles, rips and romps, not hedged, not reined until the mouth is bleeding. We forge this new millennium where foundries pour liquid to the last bitter lip. We smudge our sky, the bruises an aesthetic 50 shades of something. We welcome the violence of fracked earth shifting under our feet. We drop our quarters and slip our dollars in penny arcades, sip neon energy drinks in old soda shops. We step through this war and the last and the next, as if war is our daily bread, our dead no longer coffins lining Dover, no Walter on TV, but a parade of shiny plastic blow-up dolls who wear false ribbons brightly, read prompted words, polished like dentures. If I jazz my Scottish jig, my penny whistle mouth, if I blues Detroit in awkward frozen hands, I'm just wearing someone else's beard. But everything is iron now, stealing every day from now on, from now on, steeled against every day from now on, flattened and pressed by every day, iron-souled and iron-sided, rigidly unaltered, except at the edges, which wear and chip and rust. Then, let's see. The other one was published in Cutthroat, their online Truth to Power edition. It seemed appropriate for the moment we're living in. It's called Hearts of Darkness, Teaching World Literature. I get it. Turning a someone into a nothing, turning a thing into a totem or taboo. I get investing all your desire and fear in all the wrong places. I get we have these lovely brains, prettily twisted and pinkly coiled, that can make sunsets and chords of tangerine and blood orchids, words of vermilion and physics shaded vermouth, bitters and grenadine. And yet we lie, we obfuscate, we deny, we disembowel, as if denial is the righteous red hand of us. But I still don't get this. I teach it, I study it, and I still don't get it, though my best friend laughs at me, that naivete at the heart of me that just doesn't get how to look at an ebony carved country shaped like a heart and scramble for it, willing to kill aunts and uncles, daughters, sons, whole clans and continents across to claim it, flag it, feel it in pink palms. They map it at some conference in 1884 as if everyone owns God-given scalpels to carve the flesh of continent into puzzle pieces, easily pink and blue, lavender and gold, and I don't get it. The hubris, the more than casual arrogance of saying everything is black and white and everything black is invisible, and I can walk 1,000 miles and call it mine, and many millions dead is nothing. Miasma, mirage, malarial febrile hallucination. And I wonder if 150 years ago, righteous men and women could knit and sip and scalpel and burn villages and feel the righteous red hand as it rocked empty cradles rightly, then what are we blinking at? How many thousand miles of dead do we divide into pieces to be claimed, traded, and sold, while we measure the days with calipers and knit black wool in quiet rooms? Thank you.
I think it's my turn. Donna Pucciani from the outskirts of Chicago, and sorry we're sending all those storms Pennsylvania way or wherever, but my internet is fine tonight, and I'm going to read the poem that just came out in Sheila-Na-Gig, Scarecrow, and it's an ekphrastic poem based on a painting by Bertha Morisot, an impressionist and one of the lesser known, of course, being female. And it's based on her painting In the Cornfield at Gennevilliers, 1895, in the Musée d'Orsay, Paris. Scarecrow. This is not the painting that museum goers stand before, soaking up the red of a woman's hat or the crimson poppies dotting verdant fields. Not umbrellas sprouting on a canvas like strange mushrooms and a Paris street silvered with rain. Not the blue tutus of ballerinas, the bridges smudged across bottomless rivers, or gardens frothing with shrubs. Not haystacks or cathedrals brushed by dawn, flamed by noon, purpled by twilight. This is a painting we'd pass by. Here, a horizontal block of faded ochre anchors a solitary figure resembling a scarecrow. He stands in the foreground's patch of muddy turf. Behind him, across the field, houses and farms scatter like blackbirds, and a smokestack pokes a nondescript sky. The man himself is nondescript, having stepped towards us with the calm deliberation of someone who has a destination in mind. He shoulders a rucksack of sorts and has remembered his hat. His two pinpoint eyes stare out of a nearly faceless visage, as though the journey to find himself is as important as where he will lay his head at sunset. Over all, the sky hovers like a nameless god, a swatch of yellow-gray holding the lone human in its gaze, neither asking a question nor telling the truth, following the day tripper with its all-seeing cycloptic eye. The second poem I'm going to read came out in Cerasis Poetry, a new publication in London. And it also is an ekphrastic poem. It's on Giacometti's Walking Man, which is my favorite sculpture in the Art Institute and always pulls me at the end of that section of the museum. Giacometti's Walking Man, the Art Institute of Chicago. It's time for another tete-a-tete. You wait for me at the edge of the modern wing. I find you in the last room, past famed Renoirs, lidless Buddhas, the Chagall windows, and ancient Mediterranean vases. Warholed out, I am grateful for your sparse body, your sculpted austerity after Moore's reclining nude, with its rounded belly and derriere a fleshly celebration shining under recessed lighting. Your beloved emaciated form strides toward the wide windows overlooking the city, skyscrapers, train yards, traffic, no humans in sight, except we two. I gaze at you, you look away, preoccupied with your solitary self, shedding your skin like a weird lizard, exhausted by my wordless affection. You fail to realize that I take you home with me time after time, that your empty eyes accompany me back to a small house in the suburbs where you vanish into my dreams. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you to all of our invited mic readers and to Barbara Marie Minney, reading from her collection, A Woman in Progress from Sheila-Na-Gig Editions. You can find Barbara's book, our journal volumes, and all of our other offerings at Sheila-Na-Gig blog.com. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here.